All right, thank you everyone for staying around. I know we've had some technical problems, so to reward you, I'm going to let you participate in my presentation. I have a question for you guys. Who can tell me who this gentleman is? Not you.
Uncle Lewis.
This is C.S. Lewis. Okay, so now that you have a little bit of context of where we might be going, can anyone tell me who this is?
J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yes, that's J.R.R. Tolkien. Very good. We know these men very well. They are household names in our culture today. We know them for their works and their impact on our individual lives. We just heard from Jordan how influential literature is in our lives. And these men are living proof of that. When I think of Lewis, I'm most captivated by the Screwtape Letters and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and The Weight of Glory. And for most of us, when we think of Tolkien, I'm sure we think of The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and thanks to Gen 101, Leaf by Niggle. So, if we're familiar with all these books and these men and their work, then surely we know who this is. I don't think we do, though. This is Charles Williams. If we know his name, it's probably in relation to C.S. Lewis and the Inklings. If we don't know his name, to me that should raise even more questions, especially because he was so revered by C.S. Lewis himself. If fandoms had existed in this day, C.S. Lewis would have been in the Williams fandom. When I began my senior research project concerning Charles Williams, I wasn't sure what direction to go with, so I started with just the basic question of why, if we know Lewis and Tolkien so well, is Williams still so unknown and unappreciated? Now, anyone who's taken the Faith and Doubt literature course and who actually read Descent into Hell while they were there, they'll tell you that the reason Williams is so little known is because his books are so vague and confusing and dark. In this book, there's a rope and a play and this girl who's afraid of doppelgangers and sex with a ghost. And you know, that's not wrong. But I'm not content with that answer. So I dove into the mind of Charles Williams to see what kind of thoughts and ideas produced such complicated and unpopular novels. Though there are dozens of answers to this question, the one that I focused on was the Romantic theology. Now, the Romantic theology was something that Williams developed throughout his entire life and literary career. The first manuscript in which he explored this was simply called The Outlines of Romantic Theology. When he wrote this, though, it sat unpublished in his office for decades and remained there after his death. This wasn't published until 1990. This work provides an analysis and comparison of romantic love to the entire purpose of Christianity. In this, Williams petitions for this love and its profound importance in the life of a Christian. He says, "It has been part of the work of Christianity in the world to make men aware of the spiritual significance of certain natural experiences. This has been attempted with sacrifice. It has been attempted with death. It has been attempted very little with romantic love." So what is romantic love? According to Williams, it is the love between a man and a woman, freely given and freely accepted, and appearing to its partakers one of the most important experiences in life. Love, which demands the attention of the intellect and the spirit for its understanding and its service. So this is not simply the love that we have for each other as Christians. It's not even the love that we have for each other as friends. This is the sexual love that is felt between two people that have a sexual desire for one another. He uses primarily the experience of Dante falling in love with Beatrice to support his theology. Romantic love then begins with one lover beholding the sight of the person who will become the beloved. It is in this moment, according to Williams, that the beloved can become a vessel through which that person can experience and glimpse the glory of God's love for us. The desire, particularly the sexual desire, for the beloved should be a guiding force that helps the lover to wait on the glory. The desires are not inherently a bad thing. Neither is our flesh. Our minds have simply corrupted them. So on this, before we go any further, I need to make a distinction. Sexual indulgence is not the same thing as sexual love. Glenn Caballero explains that Williams views sexual love as a pointer towards the redeemed life. For desire delivers men and women from the self-absorbed miasma of Gomorrah into the physical enactment of coherence and exchange. Sexual indulgence is fleeting and momentary. It is a physical act engaged in for the pleasure of the individual, particularly when it is separated from sexual and romantic love. Williams defends sexual love, identifying and distinguishing it by highlighting that when abused by church leaders and officials, sexual love becomes a thing to be avoided, a sin in and of its own self, its mere existence a taint to the Christian life. However, in truth, this love is of doctrine and duty, and not of achievement, but of promise. Similarly, sex love and sexual love are also distinct from one another in Williams' work and this exploration of it. Sex love refers to the act of sex itself, the physical consummation and engagement in intercourse. Sexual love, however, refers back to romantic love. It serves to capture the essence of the desires and anticipations felt by the man and woman in love. Though the romantic theology manifests itself in all of Williams' novels in one way or another, in my whole senior project I focus on 3. We look at many dimensions, the place of the lion, and the greater trumps. But don't worry, we're only going to talk about the greater trumps today. Now, for some background, the plot follows the discovery of the original deck of tarot cards, and it also follows certain characters' ambitions and attempts to reunite those cards with a set of golden figurines that correspond to the figures on the cards. Several characters drive the plot. Now, the 2 that experience the revelation of romantic theology are the 2 lovers, Nancy Coningsby and Henry Lee. When we meet Nancy, she is selfish with a heart hardened to everyone except Henry. Henry is consumed with a greedy desire to obtain the tarot cards from Nancy's father. It is Nancy's aunt, Sybil, that guides Nancy to her encounter with romantic theology. Now, Nancy's transformation begins with a simple idea, presented in the words of a hymn. Her voice ceased, the words stared up at her. The choir and the congregation finished the line, "Adore the mystery of love." Christopher Bryan writes that it is in this moment that Nancy realizes that the taking of manhood into God means that all humanity is now precious. All is sanctified, all is glorious. Not just those she might have previously thought glorious, such as Henry, her lover, or her wise Aunt Sybil. Not only has Nancy fallen in love, but in the simplicity of one line of text, she is experiencing the power of glory that she's already glimpsed. It is shedding light on the power of love to transform her. It is revealing that love to be a mystery greater still than she ever could have imagined. Through Sybil, who in this book is the embodiment of perfect romantic love, Nancy is urged to reconcile with Henry. Henry has done despicable deeds, including trying to summon a snowstorm to kill her father so he can get the cards. That's a relationship problem. Now, Henry's done these despicable deeds, and he's tried to convince himself that they are for a higher purpose. And it's in spite of these deeds that Nancy is urged to go and reconcile with him. Glenn Caballero observes that Nancy, through Sybil, is taught that love is to be adored through every agony. And she sends Nancy back to Henry to reaffirm their love and unite its mystery to the mystery of the Golden Dancers. Nancy and Henry have already fallen in love with one another, and they've already glimpsed glory. Now they must each choose to continue pursuing the other as their beloved. Now, part of what makes this theology so profound was Williams' own experience with it, and I wish I had more time today to share more of that with you. But instead, I'm going to simply leave you with the poem, the love poem that Williams wrote for his wife soon after he met her. Where did you meet your love, young man? Where did you meet your love? I met mine in a crowded room with a carved roof above. What did you say to your love, young man, with all your mother wit? How hot it is, or how do you do? And then there was an end of it. Who was beside you then, young man? Who was beside you then? Gaspar, Melchior, Balthazar, and a crowd of shepherd men. What did you say to them, young men, silently through the din? Princes, when you come into her, I pray you, lead me in.
Desperate to go to chapel, run.
But if you can stay.
Yeah, if you can stay, please do.
So I think this question goes in two different directions.
Okay.
To the past and to the present, I guess, future, if you will, even down where Williams was. But this topic reminds me heavily of, I apologize for pronunciation, but Diogenes' ladder, which would be Plato's kind of theory of like you start with appreciation of beauty and you work your way up to essentially godly love.
Okay.
But this is a very Christian heavy perspective. So where does Charles Williams get his influence, and where does his influence go? You talked about C.S. Lewis briefly, but like, do we see
Yes.
Charles Williams in C.S. Lewis?
Not necessarily. Charles Williams drew a lot of his influence from a British poet named Coventry Patmore, and that's Charles Williams first identified himself as a poet, and it's a lot in his early poems that he starts exploring this idea of romantic theology, kind of as a response to his own experience with it. But it's most clearly seen manifested in the novels because we get developed characters that are experiencing the same things that he did. So a lot of his influence came from religious poets from earlier in his time. He loved C.S. Lewis as well. The way that they met is very interesting. They exchanged letters.
Okay.
After they each read the other's work, praising the other person. So C.S. Lewis does influence him, and you can see more of Lewis's influence in He Came Down from Heaven. That's another exposition by Williams about the romantic love, and he draws on C.S. Lewis' book, The Allegory of Love, in that. Does that answer your
Yes.
question? Okay,
so
great.
where he came from and where he went.
Great,
So.
great.
What do you think Williams would say about the view of romantic love, sexual love in this century, or even in these last decades, how we perceive it in this culture?
I think he'd be very disappointed with the way that, and he was disappointed in his own day, just with the way that we abuse the anticipation that comes with romantic love. We like to plan. I'm guilty. I like to make plans. I like to know when things will happen. I like to have plans set up in advance. For Williams, a lot of the glory that was talked about, the glory that you could see through your beloved, that was revealed as a result of anticipation. He says that it is a thing of promise and not achievement. So it's not about the moment of sex. It's not about the moment of indulgence. It's about the anticipation and experiencing the desires for those things to happen. The desires are a good thing. The desires are meant to urge us on. They're meant to point us higher to God. So I think today he'd be disappointed that we've completely discounted anticipation as a good thing.
Kimmy, of all the things that are in your senior research, what's the one thing you wish you could have told us? Just one thing.
More about Williams' own life and his experiences with it. Another thing that I do in my paper is explore not how the novels are autobiographical, but how they coincide with his experiences that he was having while he wrote them, to see how he was using the novels to understand the things in his own life that he didn't get. So, okay, this isn't going well in my marriage with Michael. You know, maybe if the characters were like this, it would play out differently. How would it play out if they were like this? I wish I could have included that, but I didn't have time.
So C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien both got elongated movies, which plays well into our culture. Could that be one of the reasons that we know them somewhat well now, in today's day and age where we don't know Williams?
I think it definitely helps. Even just the books themselves, though, for Lewis and Tolkien, even just their style is so much more accessible. I mean, the Chronicles of Narnia, you can read those at any age, but I could read those when I was 8, you know? I knew Lewis from a very young age.
Yep.
Whereas even now when I read a Williams novel, and I know all this about him, and I love him, but it's hard work to get through a Williams novel.
Okay.
So that's part of it.
To use the old metaphor, Williams is an acquired taste.
So true.
You mean there won't be an animated movie of his stuff?
No, but tell them about Ralph Winter.
Ralph Winter, who was here in April for the Imago Film Festival, has acquired some of the rights to some of the Charles Williams estate. So there's talk of some movies. He and I have kept up in correspondence about this. I've sent him some of my thesis, and he says, "Wow, you're really into this, aren't you?" But you know, I don't have any inside clues about when a movie might come out.
Tell him you're an actress.
There you go.
Do you feel that there would have to be so much adaptation to the works in order to make it into a viable film?
You know, I've thought about that, and I think a lot of it would be lost in a film because so much, even in The Greater Trumps, I said, you know, Nancy's moment of transformation, they're sitting in church singing, and it's one line of a hymn
Yeah.
that hits her soul. And then there's 20 pages of exposition about that, and, but you need those to understand, and you know, like, how are we going to convey that across film? It can be done, but something's going to be lost, and I'm not sure if it's worth losing.
Thank you, Kimmy.
All right, we'll reconvene at 11. Okay, I must have missed it.
I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. I will, yeah, I'll do that.
Sorry, like, you ran like 2 minutes in your presentation. I was just like, oh, I know this so well.
Yeah, it's good to have it.
Last time I used it was in your class.
Have you checked once to see if it's still there?
Through the window there, right?
There was a flash drive left on the table by the
Oh, thank you.
Yes, I
thought
just
about those
thought, I'm
once or
coming
twice.
over here, those are for you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, of
Very
course.
good.
I got it this
And now
morning.
Marcia Vaughn is
Oh, you got
gonna look
others
for me,
as
yes,
well.
I'm like, I'm gonna be over at Lindbergh, right? 'Cause like, so rarely, yeah.
Thank you, and thanks for coming. Thanks.
Yes. Deep breath, Kimmy. You got it.
It's 10 o'clock. My day just got so much easier.
So I got a message that I tested positive for strep.
What?
So I probably should go pick up some antibiotics.
I think-
Technically, I shouldn't be around people
Yes, technically you should not.
right now. So
Touch anything. Don't exhale.
go do that. And see you guys tomorrow.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, you shouldn't be around it.
Yeah. We love you, go away.
Okay. Kids,
Thank you, Claire, thanks for being here. Okay. I'm not going to the office when you do the next hour. Okay.
What is it, Thanksgiving show?
It is, there's a movie.
Oh.
That's all I saw, I
Produced
didn't
movie
didn't say
out
what.
there. Interesting.
Thinking probably the best one I've already done.
Too, I thought it would be our tough. I mean, I don't know, but I wish we'd had more, I had more questions for Jordan, this whole idea of.
Yeah, it was a good start, very strong start.
Literature, and this was she.
Lots of studies.
Research.
Yeah.
This whole thing on some of these. Anyway, it'll be interesting, this one has the title. She was giving me.
Well, and there's a lot to be done with something like that because it has a long history, right? You go back to Aristotle or something like that, and then to think about how. I mean, that's why I asked the question because I think it's changed, very very much in contemporary culture because there's a big business with getting people to identify
Yes.
their fiction.
Yeah, but it would be such an interesting study because you think of the days of Dickens and how so many of his things were published in these weekly,
Mhm.
and the anticipation that there was, and how that kind of built. I mean, again, I studied that, but it would be an interesting, you know, how much you could find of, you know, were there people waiting for it to be, you know, the paper to come out that week or whatever, to get the next installment, and how much that increased anticipation, and, yeah, I don't know.
There had to be, right?
Yeah.
Because he was an incredibly popular author at that
Right.
time. And you know, those things that, you know, were dismissed at the time, like the Penny Dreadfuls or Pulp
Mhm.
Fiction,
Right.
it had the same serial publication, but you know, people were waiting for it
Yeah.
to come out because they wanted to have that next chapter of their story. So I mean, I think that the different ways in which things are published and promoted have affected the way people engage with that.
Right.
And it's funny because, you know, those things are the things that are generally popular with the masses.
Mhm.
You know, and you know, we have this division that takes place between high culture and low culture in terms of the way people would talk about that stuff at the time. And you know, there would be the sort of high culture opinion that, you know, that stuff to be dismissed, but it was the stuff most people were reading and most people were identifying with. And, you know, there's still that sort of thing going on, like when, you know, Stephen King wins the National Book Award and Harold Bloom says, well, he's the worst thing I've ever read, but, you know, it's these different standards, right?
Right.
That you have. I mean, because obviously, you know, he was this incredibly well read and in some circles well respected author that people identify with, you know, just by virtue of entering his world.
And then that leads to the other question, or the other element, which of course has been huge with things like Harry Potter, that she got a whole generation of kids to read.
Yep.
You know, all of a sudden you're seeing kids sitting around their books and
Well,
reading
and
at
with the last book,
you know.
kids are reading a play, right? That's crazy.
You know, so, yeah, they're just, I wish we'd had so much more time to ask. I had a couple questions for Jordan that she may not have even looked into, but, you know, wow, it's a really interesting topic.
Yeah.
And the influence that it has in a culture, and, yeah.
Half of my kids
Well-
went to see the, it's technically not a Harry Potter movie,
Oh,
but the Magical Beast movie.
Yeah.
Bella had her birthday party, and so she invited a bunch of girls over for a sleepover, and took them all to